Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream watch along on the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Thanks for joining us. Final test match from Ahmedabad, fourth test match. It's day 4, session number 3 coming up. And you'll have to say it's been a nutritional test match. It's been a grind. It's been slow going, and both teams have really fought hard for their runs, and the bowlers have fought hard for their wickets. But I think we can agree that the conclusion of this match is probably going to be a draw. But you never know in cricket. Things have happened. But nonetheless, we shall see what happens in this final session of play. Been quite an interesting test match. Australia have done well. They batted well. They've bowled well. They've stuck at it. The pitch hasn't really helped them. But we shall see what happens in this final session of play today. But thanks for joining us, everyone. We're going to be here for probably the first half an hour of the last session. We're not going to be here for all of it. So this test match is slowly drawing to a conclusion of being a draw. And that's probably the most likely outcome. But thanks for joining us, everyone. Centre half forward, thank you for joining us. Welcome. And just a recap of the situation at T is that India, 5 for 472. 158 overs have been bowled by Australia. That's a lot of overs, similar to India in the first innings when Australia batted. They only trailed by 8 runs behind Australia. Virat Kohli finally has broken the century drought. And he's scored his first century in 3 years. His last century came in 2019. So he's broken the drought. He's on 135 not out. Axar Patel's on 38 not out. And they're going along nicely. 50-run partnership between those two. And it'll be interesting to see what India does. Will they bat on? Will they continue to bat on? That remains to be seen. Whether or not they were likely to bat on tomorrow, declare, set something up. They don't need to do anything, really. They've pretty much won the series. They don't really need to take any risks that they don't need to take. And pretty much the series is already done and dusted. So they don't really need to do anything to try and win this game. It's more of Australia to try and make something happen in this test match. So it'll be interesting to see what the tactics will be from India. Will they increase the scoring rate? Will they keep going? All will be revealed in the last session of play today. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be here for half an hour, as I said, for the last session of the day. And if you have any questions or anything, your thoughts on the test match, your thoughts on how the series has gone, do let us know in the chat if you are watching or listening. So it's still T on day 4. In India, 5 for 472. They're closing in on Australia's 480, which was quite a very good batting performance by the Australian team in the first innings. Usman Khawaja batted extremely well for his 180. And Cameron Green batted well for his maiden test century. And it was a good performance by Australia in the first innings to try and get that score of 480. They could have got 500, but 480 good enough in the first innings. You'll be quite happy with that. But it's been a very placid surface. It's been flat, nothing much happening. The odd ball's done something, but the pitch is still pretty good for batting, and it will probably get better. Can't really see it deteriorating all that much as we enter tomorrow, but more likely we probably won't get a result in this test match. You would think that it's going to go to a draw, and let's hope something does happen, but it sort of reminds me of the test matches that Australia played in Pakistan, where the pitches were flat and nothing happening. And Australia really had to grind it out in Pakistan so that have to do that here, and they are doing that. It's been tough work, but they've done well. They've toiled hard. They've kept trying different things. It's just that the surface hasn't really offered much in terms of spin or seam or swing. A little bit of a reverse swing, but all in all, pretty good surface to bat on. I don't think it will break up for another 5 days if you play on this surface. Hello, Steve. Thanks for joining us. Yes, John. Well, I just thought, we might as well come on. I was meant to interview our guest for our historical series episode today. Unfortunately, that's been rescheduled. So I had everything set up. So I just thought, we might as well come on a little bit, talk about the last session. And it's been an interesting test match, but I think many people will have their thoughts to say on it. But I just thought, seeing that we were meant to speak to our special guest today, unfortunately, that's been rescheduled until next week now. So I had everything ready and set up, so I might as well just jump on for a little while and see what everyone's thinking about the pitch, because it's been a very docile surface. It's been quite flat. Nothing has really done much. But thanks, John, for joining as always. Steve, your comment, you say you're right. The pitch has won this match. Yeah, pretty much it has. After what happened in the last test match, this usually is the case whenever you have a pitch that does a lot, like in the last test, where it spun a lot and wickets fell left, right, and centre, and the game was over in 3 and a bit days. It's always interesting to see what is the pitch for the next test match. And we've seen in this test match, it's been quite a different surface. So you're right there, Steve. The pitch has definitely won this match. If both teams score 400 and bat over 150 overs, and everyone has got 50-run partnerships or 100-run partnerships, in the case of Khawaja and Green, it was over 200 for the 5th wicket, then that just shows that it's a pretty good surface. And there's been 4 centurions in this test match. Khawaja and Green, Shubman Gill batted well, and Virat Kohli has broken the drought, and he's got his century today. So it's been a good surface, but for batting, that is, not so much for the bowlers. And this is the thing about test cricket. Do we really want to see test matches that are 500 plays 500 or 400 plays 400 in this case? Even the commentator said it's a little bit tedious and a little bit drab, to use those words. But that's just how the surface is. And the players are trying their best. Certainly the bowlers have tried their best. Australia have toiled hard. Yesterday, they only took 3 wickets. Today, they've taken 2. But going back to your comment there, Steve, definitely the pitch has definitely won this battle. But it'll be interesting to see what India do. They don't really have to do anything, really. They can bat all day if they want to tomorrow. They've already got the series. But it'll be interesting because of WTC implications. Dr. Jihan, thank you for your comment as always, Jihan. You say, I think a 2-1 result would be accurate reflection of the series. Probably a lot of thoughts of what could have been for Australia, lack of preparation early on, and injuries cost them. Yes, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You could look at that and say, well, if Australia won this moment or won that moment, there were a lot of key moments that Australia should have won, but they didn't. And they were in good positions to win or really ram home the advantage. But unfortunately, they couldn't take those opportunities. So going back to your comment there, Gian, yes, it was a lot of what ifs. And looking in hindsight, it could have been a different outcome for Australia. But I was really impressed with how they played on that last pitch in the last test, which was quite interesting. As Nathan Lyon bowls the first over after tea. Couple of runs to Curly first ball. Second ball's a dot ball. And India trail by only 6 runs now. Virat Kohli's batted well. This one from Lyon, getting this one to straighten and turn a little bit past the outside edge of Curly, but it's been like that throughout the whole test match. Nothing happening, but he's bowled well, Nathan Lyon. 2 for 126. Doesn't really reflect how well he's bowled. So Lyon in again to Curly. Around the wicket. Curly defends on the back foot. Easy as he likes. So Gian, you also add on to that comment that you've had there. Yes, to say, so it's not unusual for India to produce a road once they're ahead in the series. Well, I was speaking about that before. It's after the last test match, it's interesting to see what sort of a pitch is prepared for the next test match. And what we've seen is a surface that hasn't really offered much. And it's been pretty good for batting. It's sort of like a highway out there. Or Mitchell Stark said today, it's like a block of concrete. And line into Curly, works it on to the leg side. He'll pick up a quick single. Quick between the wickets, Curly. Moves on to 138. He's really batted well today, Virat Curly. He's got that century, finally got that weight off his shoulders. Took him 3 years to get this century, break the drought. But he's looking for a big century, looking for a big score. I don't blame him. Once you're in on a flat surface, make it count. But we shall see what score does he get in this innings, which is still going. Over 220, nearly 295 balls he's faced, nearly 300 balls. We saw Usman Khawaja face over 400 balls, and it was great discipline from Khawaja in the first innings. Nathan Lyon, 2 balls left of his 59th over. Nearly bowled 60 overs, Nathan Lyon. He's done a lot of bowling in the series. So Lyon, round the wicket to the left-hander in Patel, who tries to push this one down the ground. Got a bit of an inside edge. He didn't quite time it. Hits it straight to mid-on for a dot ball. Really impressed with Steve Smith. I thought he's captained well again in the absence of Pat Cummins, and our thoughts and prayers are with Pat and his family at this time after the passing of his mother. Australian players wearing black armbands in respect for Pat and his family. And Patel defends the last ball of the over for a dot ball. It's the end of the over. And it's 5 for 475. India trail by 5. What will India do? What's their game plan? Are they going to look to score quickly or make something out of this? Or they're just going to bat? They can do whatever they want. They're well in control now. John, you say this pitch reminded me of the current SCG wicket for the first 2 days, but then it just went on and on. And I think India will score 600 and declare at lunch tomorrow and see what happens. They could do that. They could bat all day tomorrow. They can do whatever they want, India, because pretty much they're in control of this test match now, seeing that they're close to parity. They're 5 runs away from equaling Australia's score. So you would think that they will definitely think about that. Or they could bat after lunch tomorrow, because if they do bat until lunch tomorrow, the time will be taken from them. It's not a pitch where you're going to get clumps of wickets. We've seen in this test match thus far, as Todd Murphy gets ready to bowl the second over after tea. He's bowled well, Todd Murphy. He's been economical. He's taken a couple of wickets. He's had a good tour. And he'll be very pleased with his efforts. India 5 for 475. 159 overs in the book. Todd Murphy about to bowl to Virat Kohli. And Todd Murphy's got Virat Kohli out a few times in this series. So he'll be hoping to get the breakthrough for Australia and try and get a wicket here if he can. Murphy to Kohli. This one on his pads, and Kohli whips it straight to the fielder on the leg side for a dot ball. Australia still employing their run-saving tactics here with this field. The crowd look excited. Not many people in the stadium today here in Ahmedabad. As Murphy in again to Kohli, who defends on the front foot. And there's no run. He does it with ease. The pitch not offering much. It'd be interesting to see what they do, John. If they do get 600, 650, maybe. Add on a little bit tomorrow, maybe after lunch. Then judge it by by year. Murphy in again. This one on leg stump. Curly whips it straight to that fielder at square leg for no run. India trail by 5. Yeah, 475 for 5. Steve, you say if India and Australia adopted Bazball, then maybe we'll have a game on. Yes, if England were playing today, this test match, it would have been a different result, probably. So Murphy in to Curly. Curly defends onto the leg side again for no run. He's been patient today, Curly. He's really had to work hard for his runs. It's been that sort of a test match, nutritional, grind it out. Murphy in again. This one on leg stump. Curly works it around the corner, behind square on the leg side, but straight to the fielder. It's sort of a backward square leg, and there's no run. It would have been interesting if England were playing this test match like they did in Pakistan on those pitches that were flat and not offering much. It would have been a very different outcome right now. But I think both teams are quite content with how this game is tracking along. Look, at the end of the day, India have won the series. Australia can only draw it, but that looks unlikely now with the way things are going in this test match at the moment. But they don't really need to do much. But you can argue they can be a little bit proactive and just try and make a game of it of some sort. Knowing Ben Stokes in England, they will definitely try that if Ben Stokes was in this position right now. But interesting comment there, Steve. But it'll be interesting to see when India do play England in India. It'll be interesting to see how they go. And that was the end of the over. It's 5 for 476. India trail by 4. It's been slow, nutritional test match cricket. It's been a grind. And sort of reminded me of watching the test matches when Australia played in Pakistan. Those pitches that didn't really offer much. Very slow. Everyone had to grind out for their runs. Nearly a catching opportunity on the last ball of the over there from Murphy. Cameron Green nearly got to that ball. Couldn't complete the catch. Line in again to Curly. This one on the leg stump, and Curly whips it through backward square leg. The fielder will come around in the deep to cut it off for 2. Curly moves on to 141. He's into the 140s. Very Curly. Jihan says Australia have pushed India the most in India. England, South Africa, Sri Lanka have all been smashed in recent times and look clueless. Yeah, Australia's done okay in the last 2 tours. They've definitely struggled at times, but they've definitely pushed India at times as well. As Lions into Curly, defends onto the leg side for no run. But other teams have struggled. It's just the thing. India's a very tough place to play and tour, and certainly win test matches. It's very difficult. India trail by 2. What will be the plan to bat out this last session? See what happens tomorrow. But at the moment, slow nutritional cricket as Lions into Curly. This one keeps a little bit low, but on the leg stump. Curly whips it behind square on the leg side again for a couple of runs. Very quick between the wickets. They pick up another couple. And the scores are level. 480 apiece. So India have achieved parity. And they'll be hoping to see where they are at the end of the day's play. John says, didn't Lyon go past Underwood as the most successful foreign bowler in India? Yes, he did, John. So Derek Underwood had the most wickets for an overseas bowler in Asia or in India. And Nathan Lyon's just surpassed him, which is a great feat for Nathan Lyon. He's been a great bowler for so many years. He's been a key bowler in this series for Australia. He's taken over 20 wickets, and you'll expect that from your senior spinner. And Iron again to Curly. This one on leg stump. And Curly defends onto the leg side for a dot ball. And it's been quite an interesting series for Nathan Lyon, but certainly the last test, he bowled extremely well with the 8 wickets. And 2 for 131 here, but his figures don't really reflect how well he's bowled. He's bowled really well in this innings. He's around the wicket to Curly, looking to get that angle and probably spin it back, trap Curly in front LBW if he can. The field's heavily set onto the leg side as line to Curly, and Curly defends back down the pitch for no run. It's been that sort of a test match. Slow attritional cricket. Yes, to say John, England would not have picked 3 spinners on this pitch. They probably wouldn't. They've got Jack Leach, and he did most of the work in Pakistan recently. And line into Curly. This one on leg stump again. Curly works it to the fielder behind square on the leg side for no run. It's the end of the over. It's 5 for 480. Scores are level. Interesting to see what India do. Are they going to make anything of this game? 28 overs left in the day. $480 for 5. India scores a level. Australia got 480 in their first innings. Just having a look at how each day has gone. We had 4 wickets on day 1, 6 on day 2, 3 on day 3, and now 2 on day 4. So it just shows you how good the surface is, and it hasn't really broken up much. So trying to force a result in this test match is probably unlikely. You would say now India are probably the only team that can force a result. Australia are definitely out of it now, but the draw certainly on the cards. Steve says we don't have 3 spinners. Well, Jack Leach is the only spinner. He did most of the work in Pakistan recently and bowled okay over there. Alex Carey it's not Alex Carey, it's Peter Handscomb getting some treatment, getting some strapping on his finger. He's been doing a lot of work at short leg in this series. He's been pretty good. Peter Handscomb in that position at short leg, bat pad, forward short leg, or very important role, especially to the spinners. Mitchell Stark, just having a bit of a chat to Curly. But I have to say, the series has been played in good spirit. A lot of the teams have had a smile on their face, the players, even in this test match. Series has been played in a good spirit. So it's going to be Axel Patel. He's going to be facing up to Murphy. And Murphy will bowl the 162nd over. He's into Patel. Patel drives onto the offside for no run. Nicely fielded by the cover fielder. Scores a level. India, it's up to them now, really, if they want to make something out of this game. But at the end of the day, they don't really have to do anything, really. As Murphy in again to Patel. He drives again through the covers, this time for another dot ball. It's quite a very heavy offside field that Australia have, looking to just, make it hard for India to score runs. And that's been the story from Australia in this innings, looking to grind India down with the bat. Murphy in to Patel. Patel defends on the front foot. There was a bit of an inside edge. Trickles out to the leg side, but it's a dot ball. So Todd Murphy in again to Patel. This one short, outside off stump. Patel cuts it away behind square on the offside to the backward point boundary for 4 runs. And India, they lead by 4 with that boundary. So India have the lead in this test match. They lead by 4 runs. Well, can they set something up? Can they make something happen? Unlikely, but we shall see. Murphy in to Patel, and Patel gets a single off the last ball of the over. End of the over, it's 4 for 484. India lead by 5 runs. Sorry, 5 runs, sorry. 5 for 485, India, at the end of the 162nd over. We're not far away from Australia taking the third new ball. We saw that in India's innings next time. As Murphy, sorry, there was 1 ball left in the over. My mistake. I thought that was the end of the over. Now it's the end of the over. Curley works it onto the leg side for a single. So that's the end of the over. It's 5 for 486. India lead by 5. Lead by 6 now. It's been slow nutritional cricket. Jihan says, do you think Australia could prepare better next time? Yes, I think they can. In a way, I think Australia are not doing themselves any favours. I think they can prepare next time. Look, play more A tours or tour India on a regular basis, get the up-and-coming players used to those conditions. Probably prepare pitches that take more turn and spin in Australia. Look to go to India earlier, play some tour matches and get used to the conditions. So they can do a lot of things differently, Australia. But, with the current schedule and the fixturing these days, it was very hard for them to get a tour match in this series. It would have been beneficial, but I think Australia would have still lost the series anyway if that was the case. But it does make you, get used to conditions better, slightly. But they can definitely prepare better. You always got to look at these things and say, right, okay, maybe we should do this next time or prepare this way. Line in to Curley. This one's short. Curley pulls it away to the fielder in the deep square leg for a single. He looks pretty good, Curley. He's 145 now. He hasn't got a test century for 3 years, and he wants a big one. He certainly wants a double century, and that's not out of the question. India lead by 7. It's 487 for 5. So it's been slow cricket. It's been a drain. It's been a grind. But I think Australia will be content just to soak up time and really eat away at the time, really, because Australia, they want to bat. Australia will bat at some stage tomorrow. It depends whether or not. Oh, line in to Patel. That one just bounced a little bit, just wide of Steve Smith at slip. Nearly pulled off a one-handed catch there. He took that brilliant catch off Pujara in the last test match with one hand. This one bounced a little bit from line, and Patel tried to guide it. In the end, he was caught in 2 minds, either to leave it or play a shot at it, but he played at it. Face of the bat, Steve Smith stuck the one hand at it, nearly stuck. Unfortunately, didn't. This line into Patel. This one whipped away from Patel through the mid-wicket region for a couple of runs. And Mitchell Swepson on the field. He'll cut it off for 2. India lead by 9. Nearly a one-handed catch from Steve Smith. As I mentioned before, he took that wonderful catch in the last test match off Pujara, that one-handed screamer. Nearly pulled off the same thing against Patel here, but didn't stick. But Nathan Lyon, he's bowled really well today. His figures don't quite reflect that. 2 for 136, but it's been that sort of pitch where it just hasn't offered much. Line into Patel. This one keeps low, and Patel defends onto the offside for a dot ball. He's been bowling well, Nathan Lyon, just without luck. That one kept a little bit low there. So the odd ball's done something. It's kept a little bit low, but apart from that, it's been pretty good. Patel just got the bat down in time there. Kept a little bit low. Line into Patel. Patel defends to fielder on the offside for no run. But Jihan says, I've also felt a lot of soft dismissals when on top in this series. Even this match, Smith and Marnus got out to nothing shots when they could have grinded India down even more. Carey also chased a wide delivery in this test match. Yes, he did. Line into Patel. And this one defended for no run. And the partnership is 98 between Patel and Curley. And that's the end of the over. 5 for 491. Well, it's 5 for 491. And India lead by 11 runs. Not much, but it's a lead of some sort. Yesterday, Jihan Carey also threw away his wicket. Yes, he did in the first innings. It wasn't a good shot. Probably should have knuckled down a little bit there, Carey. But anyway, so be it. Jihan says, you don't see India making those mistakes when they're on top. No, you haven't. Cameron Green into the attack. And what a test match Cameron Green has had. Finally scored his maiden test century. It was a superb knock. Good to see him finally get that first century in test cricket. Hopefully will boost his confidence, Cameron Green. None for 75 from his 16 overs. But he's bowled well at times, and he's also batted well in this test match. Excellent partnership with Khawaja of over 200. So we've got a bit of a long session. We've got 20-odd overs to bowl in this last session. We've already bowled 5. Already 19 runs have been scored for no wicket loss. It's going to be that sort of a session again. It's just going to be a grind again. And that's the case in this test match. The pitch not offering much. The odd balls kept a little bit low. It's spun a little bit. But apart from that, the wicket still looks pretty good. As Cameron Green now into the attack. He's over the wicket now. Right arm over to Curley. This one short outside off stump from Green and left by Curley. Sees it through to the keeper for no run. John says, we need to produce some ranked turners of Sheffield Shield and not worry too much about results, more for practice. Yes, it does come down to that. But also, if teams want to win the Sheffield Shield, obviously they want to favour conditions in their favour, do they? So that's something that needs to be looked at. As Green's in now to Curley. Curley defends to mid-off for no run. So it'd be interesting to see what they do, Cricket Australia. But in a way, Cricket Australia haven't really done themselves any favours in terms of preparing for Indian tours. It's been the same case for over the last few years where they haven't really taken the initiative. So in a way, they're sort of setting themselves up for failure, in a way. So they probably need to be a bit more proactive and do something that's going to be beneficial to the team in terms of getting better in these conditions in the subcontinent, especially when touring India. And Green in again to Curley. Chases a wide one, short and wide outside off stump. Curley flashes at this, gets it past the fielder, it covers. Will race away to the cover boundary for 4. Curley moves on to 149. He's 1 run away from 150. India's lead is 15 runs. Bit of a wide delivery there from Green. Curley went for it, but he got it into the gap in the cover region, just past the fielder at extra cover, and 4 runs. Another boundary for Curly. He's looking to get a big score today. Hasn't got a test century for a while. He's finally got one. He's broken the drought. And that also brought up the 100-run partnership for the 6th wicket as well. It's been that sort of pitch. It's been good for batting. Green in again. This one full from Green into the pads of Curly, who flicks it nicely past mid-wicket. Stark in pursuit. Mitchell Stark sees it to the boundary rope. He will crash into the boundary rope for 4. And Virat Kohli raises his bat for his 150. Acknowledges the crowd's applause. And he moves on to 153. India 5 for 499. They're 1 run away from their 500. Virat Kohli looks like he's going to get a big one here. Into the pads a little bit there from Green. And Kohli, nice balance. Just eased it through mid-wicket. Green in again. This one wide outside off stump and full. And Kohli works it to deep point for a single. That will bring up the 500 for India for 5. And they lead by 19. So pretty much India, they can control the pace of this test match now. They can do whatever they want. They can bat all day if they want tomorrow. They've pretty much wrapped up the series. So India don't really need to do anything to really try and win this test match, really. I think everyone knows where this test match is going. It's going to be a foregone conclusion. It's going to be a drawn test, which is a shame. It's, I reckon this series, 2023, this Border Gavaskar Trophy, hasn't really been a lot of hype before the series, and it just hasn't really lived up to that. Green in again, this time to Patel. This one outside off stump. Patel leaves it to end the over for no run. It's the end of the over. It's 5 for 500. India lead by 20. Lead by 20 runs, India. They're 5 for 500. And for Australia, it's just going to be another grind again. 164 overs in the field. Third new ball is not that far away. So, don't really want to be out there for the third new ball. Jihan says, I think Australia set themselves to bat only once in this match. Well, that was the plan. That was the plan when they batted for 2 days, which I don't blame them. Obviously, that's probably what you want to try and do, is only bat once and really put yourself in that position of, okay, if, things go our way and things go the way that we think they will go, then we can only bat once and really put India under some pressure. But that hasn't been the case. The pitch has been very good. It's been flat. Not much assistance for the seam bowlers or the spinners. It's just been a very good surface. A lot of batters improving their stats and averages in this test match as Lines into Curly. Around the wicket again, Line, right arm around the wicket. Defended onto the leg side from Curly for no run. Jihad says, but probably should have pushed the game on faster, knowing how difficult it would get to get 20 wickets. I felt they batted themselves into a stalemate. Only Green was able to swing that momentum. Yeah, really, you could say that, but we saw once the ball got a little bit older, it got a little bit difficult for scoring on this surface, but it's still a pretty good surface. Yeah, Australia could have pushed on a little bit, but they played at their tempo, they played at their pace, and they're not like an England team that's going to go out there, and if England were playing this test match, they would have done the whole Bazball thing, and they would have scored 500 in a day, like they did in Pakistan. But Australia are not like that. They played their way, and they did what they needed to do. Yes, you could argue if they could have pushed on a little bit, but really India have been the same as well. Their batting has been the same as Australia in some parts. They haven't really forced the pace, and they haven't really put the foot down. They have at times, but they haven't gone through with it. As Lines into Patel, this one defended on the back foot from Patel for a dot ball. So yeah, that's just the way it's gone, really. But I think both sides knew before this test match started that we could get a surface that was going to be quite different to the ones that we've already seen in the series thus far. And that's been the case, really. It's been a flat surface and it hasn't really done much. India lead by 21, line in again to Patel. This one defended on the back foot again from Patel for no run. John says our tail needs to work more on their batting. I'm not expecting 50s, but a 20 or 10 or 20 would have been useful. Yeah, well, all the tailenders can bat a bit, obviously. We saw in this test match, Lyon and Murphy added 70 runs for the 9th wicket. And that was good to see, but on a very different surface, mind you. This one this one beats Patel. And Lyon, he's bowled pretty well today, Nathan Lyon, but without luck. Yeah, obviously you're not expecting big things from the tail, especially in the first 3 test matches. On those pitches, it's really up to the top and middle order to get the runs. And hopefully your tailenders can contribute a little bit. As line into Patel. This one's short outside off stump. Patel works it nicely to Cameron Green at deep point for a single. Yes, I say, John. Well, we all said we wanted to see the batting talent off both sides. Careful what you wish for. Yeah, and that's the end of the over. It's 5 for 502. 5 for 502. India lead by 22 runs at the moment. And this test match going at a snail's pace. Really, not really fast forward mode, as we've seen in the last few test matches. That hasn't been the case. But it's just been a slow grind, attritional cricket. Both teams wanting to just play it by ear, see where we go. That's been the case so far. But it'd be interesting to see what India do, obviously. They will look to bat on today, obviously. Probably bat tomorrow. Maybe bat after lunch, maybe. Give Australia a session or 2 to try and, create something. But it's not likely that you're going to get 10 wickets and cause a collapse. It hasn't happened in this test matches. Cameron Green's in again to Patel. This one outside off stump. Patel leaves it for no run. So it'll be interesting to see how the game will go from here. But I think we pretty much know what the conclusion is, that it's going to be a draw, which you don't really want to quite see. But anyway, that's how this match is panning out. Green again to Patel, who glides this nicely down to third man. Nathan Lyon does the fielding. They'll pick up a single. Patel, Nelly, closing into another half century. He's batted well in this series, Axel Patel. His contributions have been quite handy for India, especially in the first few test matches of this series. And closing in another half century here. And doing it easily. And all the batters haven't really been troubled on this surface. Virat Kohli, 155, not out. He'll be looking to push on here and probably get a double century if he can. Well, he's halfway there. 155. He's got another 50-odd runs to get to that milestone. Cameron Green, top of his mark. Right arm over the wicket to Kohli. This one, full toss from Green. Kohli bunts it down the ground to mid-off for no run. Now, a lot of people in the chat, sadly voting in our poll, have said this test match will end in a draw. We won't get a result. That's probably most likely to be the case. Hello, Han. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us, Han. Long time no see. That was Green in. This one's short outside off stump. And Curly watches it go past him to the keeper and Carey, who has done a pretty good job in this series, Alex Carey. He's found it difficult at times, but he's kept well. 110, the partnership. It's 166 overs being bowled now by Australia. It's been that sort of a test match where it's just sort of petering out and being quite monotonous after what's happened in this whole series. It's been a change from the first 3 test matches. Green in again. This one a full toss. Curly gets an outside edge pass. Carey will race down to the third man boundary for 4. I think that would be a no ball potentially. Nope, I think that's okay. That was below the waist, and that's 4 runs. Curly moves on to 159. India 5 for 507. Yeah, just dipping down below the waist there. So he was okay, Cameron Green, but he's got to be careful not to bowl a beamer. Han, you say, I just checked the cricket scores and Glenmorgan are touring Zimbabwe for some reason. Okay. Are they? Oh, that's quite unusual. Green into Curly. This one full outside off stump. And Green... Curly works it to third man for a single. To end the over. It's the end of the over. It's 5 for 508. It's been that sort of a test match where it's just been a grind. Just been a slow grind and nothing really happening off the surface. As I've said numerous occasions today, it sort of reminded me of watching Australia play in Pakistan on those pitches. Nothing much happening. It's like watching paint dry. But it's been a real contrast from the first 3 test matches. And after what happened in the last test, it's sort of that sort of thing, isn't it? The match summary, Australia made 480 all-outs. They're currently trailing India by 28 runs. India are 5 for 508. Virat Kohli's on 160 not out. He's probably going to go past Usman Khawaja, who got 180, who batted extremely well in that first innings. Han, you say, is this pitch prepared to make sure of a draw so India can't lose the series? Well, you would say that, Han. Or after what happened in the last test, because the first 3 test matches have lasted 3 days. So it was always going to be interesting to see what will sort of happen with this pitch in this test match. And we've already seen that this pitch hasn't really broken up much. It's pretty much flat. I think Mitchell Starc described it as a block of concrete when he was talking about the pitch and the spikes not quite going into the surface to create rough for Nathan Lyon. So, yeah, well, for India, really, they can bat all day, really, tomorrow. They don't need to win this test match. But when it comes down to WTC, they're just hoping that Sri Lanka doesn't win 2-0 against New Zealand. And Sri Lanka have really started well in that first test in Christchurch in New Zealand. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. As Lyons into Curly. This one's short and Curly pulls it away to deep backward square leg for a boundary. He moves on to 164. India increasing their lead slightly. And you say 1,000 runs in 3 days, but only 15 wickets. What puts people off Test cricket? Total snooze fest. Yeah, that's sort of the thing, isn't it, Han? Really, that's the thing. A lot of people criticize the pitches in this series, especially the last pitch. They said it was too in favour of the bowlers. Right? This is the thing. We always have this discussion about pitches. We're never going to get a perfect surface, but we just want to see a good contest, I suppose. we want to see both batters and bowlers, showcasing their skills and really trying to, test themselves. But in this series, the pitches have been spoken about a lot. As line into Curly, pushes this nicely, Curly. It was just a push. Beats mid-off and it will race away for 4 runs. Down to the long off boundary for 4. Another boundary for Curly. He's getting motoring now. Steve Smith scratching his head. He's saying, what else can we do? I've tried everything. But this pitch is still pretty good. Right in the middle of the bat from Curly. It was just a push. He didn't really hit it hard. Just a push down the ground. And the mid-off fielder was a bit wide there at wide mid-off. Couldn't cut that off. Anyway, line into Curly. Curly sweeps down the leg side, but there was an appeal for court behind, but Curly didn't hit it. So end of the over, it's 5-16. India, they lead by 36 runs at the moment. 36 runs is what India lead by. Say, Han, surely the way New Zealand won versus England will give them a lot of confidence to chase Sri Lanka. Yeah, they would. But Sri Lanka, an opportunity for them to really, try and make it to a WTC final. It would be big for Sri Lanka if they can do that. But for India, their hopes depend on Sri Lanka, really. They hope New Zealand can win that series. But it'll be an interesting run chase tomorrow. But Todd Murphy back into the attack. He's bowled well, Todd. Really impressed. He's had a really good series. Say, Han, do you think New Zealand-England final test has made people expect too much from a test? So this match seems even worse than it actually is. That's the thing, Han. You can't really control how a test match will pan out. You can't really control the pace of it. You can't control how the tempo is played. You can't really control what result will be achieved. Now, a lot of people talk about we want close finishes, we want extreme finishes and all this, but that really doesn't happen, really. That was a wonderful test match. I was with Nick at the time. He was streaming that test match on the final day. I was joining him for a little bit. And it was a brilliant test match. You have to say England sort of didn't really play smartly in the run chase there. Probably played some rash shots, but New Zealand believed and they won by a run, which is only the second time in Test cricket history that it's happened. The West Indies won by a run in 93, 92, 93 in Adelaide against Australia. So it was a wonderful test match. And that's why you want to see Test cricket prosper and really do well. But as I go to what I said before, is that you can't really control how a test match will pan out, really. So I think we have to really be realistic with our standards and what we expect from test cricket, because it's up to the players how they play the game, really. That's a single. Axel Patel's brought up his 50. Another half century in the series. Well played to Axel Patel. India lead by 38 runs. They're 5 for 518. Curly 169. So yeah, but whereas this test match, 500 plays 400, not really a good thing for test cricket. You really want to see a good contest. So I think at times we can be a little bit over ambitious with our standards there, Han. So I think we just have to be realistic sometimes and expect that test matches are not going to be close. They're going to be some test matches that are going to be heavy defeats, big margins. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But definitely that test match has definitely sparked people's interest in Test cricket. The way England are playing at the moment is certainly doing that, and no doubt the Ashes later on this year will be big as well, as Patel defends again on the front foot quite easily. This pitch still very good for batting. So it'd be interesting. But it's a good point that you raised there, huh? Jihan says, I think Mitchell Starc was really happy he got to make his comeback on these pitches. Yeah, I think he said this morning, Jihan, when he was interviewed, I think he said, well, it's like a block of concrete, this pitch. The spikes are not really going into the pitch to create rough for Nathan Lyon. So, yeah, I think all the bowlers across the two teams wouldn't be happy to bowl over 150 plus overs. It's been a bit of a grind, but Australia have stuck at it. This is what they did in Pakistan, and they were able to get wickets and make something happen. I was quite surprised when Australia actually won that last test. How we won that last test in Pakistan, I don't know, but we managed to get the job done on those types of wickets. As Murphy to Patel. This one short outside off stump. Patel glides it, cuts it away to deep point. Deep backward point for a single. To end the over. It's the end of the over. It's 5 for 519. It's going to be drinks. Players are going to have drinks. It's been a hot day. Time for some refreshments. India lead by 39 runs at drinks. And that gives us time to answer the comments and what people are saying in the chat. Han, you say... For New Zealand, it's basically 260 runs in one day with 9 wickets in hand. That should be very doable. Yeah, it was. But it was a very exciting finish, that test. Watching it with Nick, just seeing Nick sort of panicking a little bit was good to see. But a very good win from New Zealand. They haven't been really playing well of late, New Zealand. But good to see them win that test match in the way they did. But, yeah, it's not every day that you'll get those sort of test matches that finish with a one-run victory margin. It's only happened twice, and the West Indies were the last team to do it in 92-93 against Australia and Adelaide in that famous test. Yes, as Han, the only element that can be controlled is the pitch. Make a dead road, and even Warne, Murley and Stain would struggle for wickets. Yeah, that's the thing. The biggest talking point in cricket is the pitch. And the pitch will dictate how the game will go. So, you know, you've got to prepare a surface that's evenly matched. It won't quite be in the middle. It won't be perfect. But if you have some sort of balance between bat and ball, that's what we want to see in pitches. But we always have this debate about pitches and whether pitches are good enough or are not good enough. Certainly in this series against India, we've certainly had that discussion. So it's up to the ICC to see what they need to do in terms of making pitches good enough and to test standard. But, yeah, you know, if Warne and Murley and Stain bowled on this surface, you know, knowing Shane Warne, he would be determined to take wickets on this pitch. He was that sort of a cricketer, really. He will find a way. But, yeah, definitely difficult for the bowlers of this test match. Yes, Sumit. Yeah, I just thought, well, we were meant to speak with our guest for our historical series episode. We do have some upcoming guests for that historical series. I was meant to speak to someone today. Unfortunately, that's been rescheduled until next week. So I had everything set up, and I thought I might as well come on for a little bit to just talk about this test match and the series. And I did say that we weren't going to be live streaming in the future, but I said we may come back for the odd live stream every now and again, but not all the time. But I just thought, well, I had everything set up for that chat that I was meant to do tonight. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. That's happening next week, but I had everything set up, so I was prepared to come on and talk about this match a little bit. Yeah, and yes, as they submit, the results seem drawish. Yep, you're not wrong there. It's pretty much a draw. We can draw that conclusion. Pardon the pun. Jihan says, any chance of an Aussie kamikaze like in Delhi? No, I don't think that will happen, Jihan. I don't think the pitch will break up as much, and I don't think Australia will lose their head like they did um, in Delhi. I don't think that will happen. So, yeah, I think Australia will just bat normally like they did in the first innings, and yeah, I don't think they'll do that. But yeah, that Delhi Test match, it was quite a disappointing result. Hans says, do you reckon Bazball will work on a pitch like this, or would it be thrown away an innings? I think it could work. It worked in Pakistan on these types of pitches that were flat. So I think it could work, Han. And that was interesting because if England were playing this test match right now instead of Australia, I think knowing Ben Stokes, he'll be saying, right, let's score quickly and give ourselves more time to take the wickets to win the test match. It worked in Pakistan, and for England to win 3-0 in Pakistan on those pitches, it was an unbelievable achievement. Those pitches were very flat, but to play the way they did, and it sort of worked in their favour, and they were able to do it. But you know, that's the thing with Bazball, is that all teams, when they play against England, you know, that's one of the challenges they'll have to face. So it'll be an interesting Ashes series later on this year. How will Australia approach England's new approach of playing Test cricket? I think for Australia, it's just about just trying to play to your strengths, not get carried away with the whole Bazball hype or whatever. You know, do what you are strong. You know, what are your strengths, and play to them. You know, England will create chances. They will, because their batters will throw the bat at everything and play like a T20 innings. And so you just have to play at your strengths, and not get carried away trying to match England, because any team will not match England in terms of how they're playing Test cricket at the moment. As Matt Kuhneman's into the attack after the drinks break. It's been a hot day in Ahmedabad. Jihan says Bazball probably would work. This one is similar to the pitches in Pakistan. I thought Australia got bogged down and didn't push the game forward. Smith's strike rate was 28, minus 3 of 20 balls. Yeah, I would agree with that, Jihan. Yeah, they could have pushed on a little bit, but you know, I think for Australia, it was just about trying to, you know, just trying to bat once in this test match and not looking to bat twice. But they will have to bat at some point tomorrow, whether it be first session, second session, or even the last session. I don't know. But as I said, India could bat all day if they wanted to. Han says, are there any laws about spikes on the shoes? Could they wear different shoes on a pitch like this to ensure creating some rough? Yeah, there's nothing against that, Han. There's no laws to suggest any type of spikes. You can wear whatever spikes you want, long or short, which most players do. So it doesn't really matter, really. So you can wear long spikes. And usually bowlers will wear, you know, shorter spikes when you're batting, but bowlers would tend to wear longer spikes to chew up the pitch and get that rough going. So I think for Mitchell Starc, you're probably wearing longer spikes, but it depends for which bowler wants to use certain lengths of spikes. But there's nothing in the laws to say that you shouldn't wear these spikes, or these spikes are okay. There's nothing in the laws or playing conditions to suggest that, so that's fine. So any bowler can wear any spikes they want, really. As Axar Patel dispatches Kuhneman over the rope for 6 on the leg side. That was a big 6. India's lead is 45. This one outside legs, just pitching on off stump, just straightening. And he was in the hitting arc of Axar Patel, and he just launched that into the stands for 6. Very impressive shot from Axar Patel. And he is rocketing along. So going back to your point there, Han, nothing in the laws. Any bowler can wear whatever spikes they want. But it comes down to a bowler running on the danger zone, If we're talking about that, then, that's a different story. So Hans says, I'm talking about New Zealand versus Sri Lanka as stumps of today. Yeah. Well, what do they need? 280 odd runs to win. So they've already lost a wicket, New Zealand. So Sri Lanka will believe they can pick up the 9 wickets. 1 or 2 good partnerships from New Zealand, they should be able to chase that target down of 280 odd set by Sri Lanka in that test match. But for Sri Lanka, opportunity to really shake up the WTC, because if they win 2-0, that will definitely not help India's cause. Dr. Jihan says, in Pakistan, Cummins and Sark got the ball reverse swing going. They should have won the second test as well, but let it slip. Australia's fast bowlers have done nothing this series. No, they haven't really. It's been pretty much the spinners that have had the role to play in this series. And it just hasn't been that sort of series for the fast bowlers. For Australia, that is. It's just mainly been the spinners, really. Hans says, would uncovered pitches solve the issue of flat roads? That's interesting. That's an interesting point there, Han. They would. Certainly in the old days, they did. You really wanted to bat first in the old days. You didn't really want to get caught on a sticky wicket or a wet dog, to use that cricket vocabulary. You always wanted to bat first if the wicket was a little bit damp on uncovered pitches. And then as the test match progressed, it would dry out and become much easier. It would certainly liven up things, but you've got to think about safety. You've got to think about safety of the players. So I guess it's a different era. Back in the old days, you didn't really think about player safety all that often. You just did what you did. And uncovered pitches were just a part of the thing in cricket at the time in those days. Whereas now with covers and player safety and all that stuff, injuries, the game's a lot different to what it was back then. So I don't think they'll go back to uncovered pitches hard, but it will definitely liven things up. I think maybe give it a trial, maybe trial a game of cricket. I don't know, maybe at first class level or something. Prepare an uncovered pitch. So don't put the covers on it at all. Let's see how the players go on it. It'll be an interesting experiment, but it will definitely change things up a bit if that was the case. But as I said, different era, different game to what it was back then to now. As that was the end of the over. It's 5:29. India lead by 49 runs, and Australia, they'll be looking just to take time out of the game, just to look to slow things up. They don't really want to bat for a long time. They will definitely bat at some point tomorrow. They don't want to bat for a long time. That's the case with Australia at the moment, because they can't really win this match. Only India or the draw is the likely outcome. As Murphy into Curley, who defends on the leg side for no run. But it would be interesting to see uncovered pitches again. Bit of an experiment. And I think we should explore that. But as I said, different eras, different generation, player safety and all that. A vastly different game. Yesterday, Han, England are struggling in their ODIs. 4 down for 65. I think you're talking about the T20 series, Han. They've just done the ODI series. England won that 2-1. Bangladesh are leading the T20 series at the moment, 1-0. So, yeah, the world champions not doing well in Bangladesh in the T20 side of things, but they won the ODI series. That was expected from England. But, yeah, it's the T20 series, Han. That's happening. The ODI series was completed ages ago. But they've won that series 2-1. This T20 series at the moment, they're trailing 1-0 in the second game that's happening at the moment. The lead is 50 now for India. Yeah, was it? No worries, Han. We tend to forget things and get things muddled up. That's all right. Yeah, T20s are on at the moment, so the world champions struggling a little bit. But good on Bangladesh. It's good to see them do well, and good for the world game. If Bangladesh are playing well and winning games of cricket, that's good to see. I don't think we should call it an upset. I don't really like it when we describe these sort of wins with Bangladesh and other teams as upsets. Bangladesh have been in world cricket for a very long time now. I don't think it's really an upset anymore, or a shock defeat. But I don't think that does any respect to Bangladesh if we keep calling it an upset. It's good to see them win games of cricket, which is fantastic for the game. And that's how the game is going to develop and grow. And that's what we want in international cricket. As Patel, he works this to deep point for a single. Jihan says, when they pulled up the record for wickets in India, Courtney Walsh had 43 and an average of 18. Unbelievable, really, on these roads. Yes, he was a very good bowler, Courtney Walsh. And his partner in crime, Curtly Ambrose, was pretty good as well. But yeah, 43 wickets in India at an average of 18 is a pretty good record in Asia, especially in the yeah, pretty good record indeed. John says, so I just ordered 2 replica urns from eBay. Fantastic, John. We got to send one of them to Nick and Gabe, of course. The Ashes later on this year. I've already got my replica Ashes urn. I've had that for a while now. Obviously, not quite the real Ashes urn, but close enough. But yeah, it should be a good Ashes series. Just trying to think about the Ashes and what's going to happen there. It should be a good series, the way England are playing at the moment. That's another boundary from Patel. This one a slog sweep. Down to cow corner for 4. It's the end of the over. It's 5 for 538. India lead by 58 runs. And this test match is slowly petering along. And India, they're in control. But it's up to them, really, what they want to do. Australia will be happy to get out of this test match with a draw. I think a 2-1 result. Not a bad result for Australia in this tour. It's been a difficult tour. Been a very hard tour. Certainly watching it, it's been difficult. But going back to your comment there, John, yes, excellent. Hopefully we can send that to Nick and Gabe and they can have a bit of Ashes memorabilia with the Ashes urn, of course. And if you watched our historical series that we did with Neil Robinson, head of Heritage and Collections at MCC and Lords, we talked about the Ashes. And that episode's up right now. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. It goes for over an hour, but we talked a lot of good stuff about the Ashes, and Neil explained how the Ashes legend was born. It's quite an interesting story, and it's been going on since 1882. And it's been a long rivalry between Australia and England over the years. Han says, could you wear soccer boots with 1 centimetre metal studs? Would be tricky not to slip over, but that would scruff up the pitch. Yeah, just coming back to it now, Han, it's just come back to my mind. Yes, going back to your earlier point about the spikes, I do remember that the ICC do have regulations for clothing and all that stuff. So I would think that would not be allowed to wear soccer boots. Also with clothing, there's regulations on logos and all that stuff. But there's no regulations in terms of the spikes, but that just popped into my mind then. I just remembered that as India still looking to increase their lead here. Another single. Excuse me. yeah, that just came into my mind about the regulations for clothing. So I think there could be something about shoes in there. I may have to check that again. But yeah, that would be interesting. But I think it would be a little bit awkward when you're bowling with soccer boots on. So the conventional cricket spikes will do the trick. And Kuhnemann bowls to Patel. This one high in the air, and it's another 6 from Patel. He races to 70, 72. And India lead by 65 runs. Axar Patel, could he get his first century in Test cricket? He hasn't got one yet. Han, you say 257 runs to win with 9 wickets remaining. I would think Sri Lankan bowlers in New Zealand conditions are nowhere near as difficult to face as Anderson was. Yeah, will be an interesting run chase. They've already taken 1 wicket, Sri Lanka, so if they can pick up a couple of early wickets tomorrow, that will be an interesting run chase there. Han, you say, excuse me, my mind was thinking of your MCC history videos. I feel happy that Nick wasn't there to ask for tickets. Let him beg outside the ground on the first day of the test. Well, an interesting story about that, Han. I did ask Neil, that I do have a friend from America who is going to England at the time of the Ashes. And he's looking for some tickets. And that didn't come to anything. I tried. I did mention to Nick that I was speaking to him. And I would ask him, because I know Nick is trying, obviously. But I said to Nick, well, I'll try and see what happens. But the answer that Neil gave to me was, you pretty much got to put your name in the ballot. And especially when it's a test match at Lord's for an Ashes year, and you're not a member of MCC, it's going to be very difficult to try and get tickets for that test match. So I think the next best thing for Nick is to probably have a tour of Lord's, I think. That's probably the next best thing to watching a test match at Lord's. So I hope Nick does get the opportunity to go to Lord's, because it's not every day that you go there. Obviously, Neil, in our conversation that we had recently, Neil said, many people who go to Lord's, they only go there for the only time in their life. And many people do, because it is such an iconic ground. As Axar Patel launches this into the crowd again for 6 over cow corner. And he's hit 2 6s in the over now from Kuhnemann. It's the end of the over. It's 5 for 551. India lead by 71 runs. They're getting a move on here. India probably looking to set something up. But it is fast forward mode for India here. Axar Patel looking to capitalize on these deliveries from Kuhnemann. And that's what's happened. Yeah, so just going back to that, yeah, I did ask, but, as you watched MCC Lord's Historical Series episodes, Neil did say it takes you 29 years to become a member of MCC. So I think for Nick, the next best thing for him is to become a member, but it will take him 29 years to do that. So he doesn't have that time. So, I was quite surprised when Neil told me that. 29 years to become a member of MCC. That's a very long time. But for Nick, yeah, it's going to be difficult for him to get tickets. But hopefully he does get the opportunity to go to Lord's, obviously. It's not every day that you go there, so we shall see what happens on that front. Yes, to say, John, that's the plan. Might even chuck in a Bradman coin. I have spares. Oh, that would be good. Definitely anything with Sir Donald Bradman is definitely worth collecting in cricket. Yeah, that sounds good, John. I hope Nick and Gabe do receive that urn and the coins. Todd Murphy continues. Well, this test match is slowly petering out to a draw, but India have played some shots that made it interesting. Yeah. Han says, Edgbaston, Headingley or Old Trafford are better venues for the Ashes anyway. Lords and the Oval produce flat pitches and boring matches. Yeah, it's always for players that are touring, especially Australian players, to play a test match at Lords is quite unique in itself. I can remember when Richie Beno first went to Lords in 1953. He was there with Neil Harvey. And he saw the ground for the first time and he said, Harv, it's a bit wonky. And Neil Harvey said, well, you'll be a bit wonky if you're over 150 years old. So it's quite a unique place, Lords. And it was great to chat to Neil about the history of Lords. I learned so much in the amount of time we spoke. We spoke for over 4 hours in that episode. So it was a lot of stuff to get through, but I learned so much in 4 hours listening to Neil than you would ever read in a book about Lords or the MCC. It's just a wonderful wealth of knowledge, and it was great to have him on and great to get that opportunity to speak to Neil. I never thought I would speak to someone from Lords or the MCC, so at least I've ticked that off the cricketing list. But it was a great chat, and I hope people enjoyed the episodes. As I mentioned before, the Ashes one is out, and there is a strong connection with Lords and the Ashes. The Ashes urn is at Lords, of course. It's been there since 1927, where Ivor Bligh donated it to the MCC upon his passing. He asked his wife, Florence Murphy, on his request to give the urn to the MCC. To put it on display, and it's been there ever since. So it was quite interesting to hear Neil talk about that and talk about the Ashes in general. And it should be an interesting Ashes series again, which is coming up in June, July, August. John, yes, he has. Travis Head has had a bowl. He bowled a couple of overs before tea. And you say, I can't imagine it now. Well, Jack, there is a ballot. I do not want those damn Yanks coming here. Have you heard the music that they like? Well, I did try. I did try for Nick, to no avail. And you say, which would be a bigger dream for you, a tour of the SCG or Lords? Well, I would have to say Lords, Han. Lords is one of my favorite grounds. And I said in the episode with Neil, especially when in the last part, which is the Ashes, I did say, if I go to Lords for a tour of the museum or I go there to watch a test match, I'll probably faint. And that probably will happen if I do go to Lords. It's such a wonderful place, rich of history, and it's one of my favourite grounds. So the favourite grounds I have in cricket, well, number one's the Adelaide Oval because I've been there. Number two is Lords, and number three is the MCG, and then I have the SCG there. So those are my favourite grounds in the world, really, purely based off historical base, because I do love the history of the game. And with this historical series, chatting to Neil, it's definitely a place that I do want to go one day. And as I said, I'll probably faint because it's such a wonderful place to go. And as Neil said in the episode, people who go for a tour, they only go there for once in their lifetime, and they don't come back. So it's definitely a pilgrimage for all cricket fans to go to Lords. Certainly for me, that is. Certainly to go to England to play cricket or watch cricket or umpire cricket, and then go over there, watch a test match at Lords. One day, hopefully. Hopefully one day. I'm jealous that Nick's going over there. Because it would be good to go over to watch an Ashes series in England. That's definitely the goal for me. Go over there and see what's an Ashes like in England. The Oval, yeah, the Oval as well, yeah. That's got a historical element to it with the old pavilion. And that's another thing that me and Neil talked about, is that with Lords, and with many grounds in the world, that you've still got that cricketing connection to the past with old buildings like the Pavilion at Lord's, because in the chat that I did with Neil, we talked about the Pavilion. And it was wonderful hearing about how the Pavilion came about and what's inside the Pavilion, the long room and the change rooms and all that. So, it's quite an interesting place. Obviously, the Adelaide Oval with the scoreboard, the SCG with the old changing rooms, the ladies and members stands, the Oval, Old Trafford, Trent Bridge still have their pavilions, but all the other grounds around the world are like concrete coliseums now. You don't have that. And that's what I sort of like in a cricket ground. I like that historical connection to the ground, because that's what cricket's about. It's about, traditions and that historical side of things, which I like. It's not to everyone's cup of tea. I understand that, but I like that because cricket's all about the history. And with this historical series, we're trying to promote that. We're trying to get people interested in the history of cricket. This is a wonderful history. There's a lot of stories to be untold and to be told. And that's why it was wonderful to chat to Neil for 4 hours about all things cricket history, apart from Lords and the MCC. So I hope everyone enjoyed that episode. We've got more coming. I was meant to speak to someone today, actually, a historian from England, actually. But apparently he was a little bit under the weather, and we had to reschedule that next week. So I was meant to do that tonight. That's why I'm streaming a little bit of the last session tonight, because I was meant to speak with our special guest for that historical series episode, a cricket historian from England. As I mentioned, he was a bit under the weather, so we had to reschedule it. So that's why I'm here doing a little bit of streaming. But we do have more episodes coming up. We're also going to be talking to Adelaide Oval as well. They approved that interview recently, so that's great to chat to someone about the Adelaide Oval's cricketing history, which is fantastic. As Mitchell Starc clean bowls Axel Patel right through his defences, big gap between bat and pad. He was looking to flash that onto the offside, and he's out bowled. Finally, Australia get the wicket, the first wicket of this last session. It's Axel Patel. He is gone for a very good 79. Mitchell Starc finally gets his first wicket of this test match. Maybe a little bit of reverse swing. No, it was a big inside edge. He went for the booming cover drive and knocked over the stumps. Well, that's the end of Patel. India lose their 6th wicket, and they still lead by 70-odd runs. And Australia will be hoping to wrap it up if they can. Patel going for 79. It's 6 for 555. Hans says, do you reckon that if the gas holders went, that the Oval would lose a lot of its appeal? I don't know about that, Han. Obviously, it does add to the background of it, because when you see old photos of test matches at the Oval, you usually see those gas holders. And especially when Bradman played in 48 in his last innings. I just feel like with the pavilion, as long as the pavilion at the Oval is there, then it does have something that people would appeal to. And that's the thing with Lords, the Adelaide Oval, the SCG, and with the Oval and Trent Bridge and Old Trafford. They do have a sense of the past there. So a lot of people like that nostalgia and they like that history. Like the MCG, it's just a concrete coliseum. It's lost that history. I can understand redevelopment and all that, moving with the times, but it's something that Neil said. Whenever Lords think about development, redevelopment, they don't knock everything down and just do it like that. They think about it, and they think about how can we still maintain the historical side of things, but also modernize at the same time. And Lords does that wonderfully well. It's probably one of the grounds in the world that does that very well. As you say here, Han, like you said, though, the gas holders have always been there. If they go, that connection to the past goes too, in my opinion. It does, because it's a part of cricketing history, really. Even though it's not a part of the cricket ground, it's still a part of cricket. You know, seeing old photos of England playing at the Oval with the gas holders in the background and the way that cricket was played back then. And that's the thing. Cricket history is a wonderful thing. That's why I love it so much. And that's why we've done the historical series. That's why we're getting people on to talk about it. And I hope people do take the time to really read up on the history of it, because it's a wonderful history. Han used to say Old Trafford hasn't kept much of its old self. No, it hasn't. It's changed a lot, but it's still got the pavilion there. I know the pavilion's not quite original, but it's still got that. So at least it's got some sort of connection to the past there. Yes, to say, Han, I saw photos of the old tavern. It was a part of the stands if you're looking from the outside. Yeah. I did talk about that with Neil, about the tavern, the origins of the tavern. And it was basically there so punters who went to the ground at Lord's could buy a jug of ale or something like that. Thomas Lord was an entrepreneur. So if he found ways of making money and a buck, then he would have done it. So if you watch that episode that we did, part number 1 of the Lord's historical series episode with Neil, he does explain that in part 1 about the tavern. And it was interesting hearing those origins of the tavern as well. John says, there isn't a whole lot to see at the SCG, but I have sat in the ladies' stand and been allowed onto the middle during a domestic one-day match when New South Wales were playing. Yeah, I think with the SCG, it's the only cricket ground in Australia that's still got that connection with the past, along with the Adelaide Oval. I had this discussion with Richard Harrison, who wrote a book about his umpiring experiences, who umpired in England, in league cricket in Kent, actually. Wrote a book about that, and he also umpired in Australia. During our cricket discussion that we did talk about the history. And, in Australia, cricket grounds are not cricket grounds. They're football grounds, they're AFL grounds, they're multi-purpose sports stadiums. Whereas in England, they're cricket grounds. And they still connect that sort of connection to the past in a way, because they're proper cricket grounds. Whereas here in Australia, they're not. So you sort of lose that in a way, really. But it's very important to maintain that history and make sure we preserve the history of the game. For people who are coming into the game as new fans, about learning about it. So it's very important. And, Test cricket's got a lot of history, of course. And as Todd Murphy bowls to Curley, who's just racking up the runs, works it for a single on the leg side, moves on to 179. Ravi Ashwin's just arrived at the crease. So whereas in Australia, they're all multi-purpose stadiums, and they sort of lose that cricket ground sort of feeling about them. Whereas in England, they're proper cricket grounds, and you still have that sense of, connection to the game. Yes, to say, Han, the Oval was a multi-purpose ground, but after they built Twickenham and Wembley, it became pretty much only for cricket. Yes, I did read somewhere that it did host a few soccer matches or football matches, as people say, and Lords as well. Neil told me a very interesting thing about Lords is that it actually had a game of baseball played at the ground, which was quite interesting. I was like, wow, never knew that. That's an interesting thing to say to Nick and Gabe, that Lords actually had a game of baseball being played on it. Many years ago, that was. I think that was a fundraising match, Neil said. I can't remember exactly what Neil said, but if you go back to that episode, part number 1 about the origins of the ground, we did talk about that. Because I asked Neil about, did Lords ever host any other sports other than cricket? And obviously it did. And baseball was one of them, which was quite interesting. Also, it was a part of the Olympics in 2012 when the archery was in place. So yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting thing I didn't know about Lords. It actually hosted a baseball match, which is quite fascinating, actually. The home of cricket. Yesterday, the Oval hosted a few FA Cup finals, a few England versus Scotland soccer and rugby matches. Wow, I didn't know that. Well, I knew about the soccer ones. And obviously the Oval, Han, another interesting fact about the Oval has actually hosted an AFL match as well. It's hosted many AFL matches over there. When the AFL wanted to get AFL across to the English public, they had a few games over in England. They certainly had one at the Oval. I do remember seeing that years ago. So something that you may have not known about the Oval, Han, is that it has actually hosted some AFL matches, Australian rules football matches. I can't remember what year, but I'm sure if you search it up on Google, it will come up. But I do remember that at the time. There were a few matches played there. Jihan says, for me, nothing beats going to a match with a full house at the MCG. I've been to 3 Boxing Day tests, the World Cup opening game and final. In 2015, all crowds over 90,000. Yeah, that's just... It's a wonderful sporting coliseum, the MCG, especially for cricket or AFL for grand final day. But yes, that World Cup final in 2015 was pretty big, 90,000. Certainly a few Ashes matches have been over 90 or 80,000. Yeah, it's a wonderful ground, the MCG. And a stadium that I do want to go one day, if I do have the time. It's probably one of the stadiums that I do want to tick off the list. I've been to Adelaide Oval, so it's probably MCG and Lords that I want to tick off the list in my cricketing time. As that's the end of the 174th over. India 6 for 560. They lead by 80 runs. Well, it's been interesting this last session. Runs have been scored at a good rate from India. We've seen throughout the test match that runs have been slow to come by on a very good surface. Not much pace, not much bounce. But yeah, this test match slowly going to a draw, you would think. Hans says the Oval hosted a baseball match in 1889 too. Really? Didn't know that as well, Han. Well, you learn something new every day in cricket. And that's what I said to Neil. You learn something new, especially when it's cricket history. And yeah, you just learn something new every day. I didn't know that. Thank you for that, Han. Yes, to say, Han, the AFL matches were in 2005. I would have thought it would have been way back. Yeah, they did host a few matches back then just to get AFL across. I think some people in England are interested in AFL. And obviously, well, it is the AFL season. The AFL season's about to start in a few weeks. But they did do that at the Oval back in the day. They had those matches there. And also Lords hosted some hockey matches as well, as Neil said in our discussion recently. He said baseball and hockey as well at Lords. As Mitchell Stark continues, this one down the leg side to Curly, tries to work its a fine leg, playing a miss, straight through to Carey. And there's no run. India lead by 80 runs. Ashari, thank you for joining us. He's saying no results for this match. Well, it looks likely that probably won't be the case, that this game will have a result. But yeah, it's just interesting to see what India would do. Would they bat all day tomorrow, bat until the last session? They can do whatever they want, really. They've already won the series. They don't really need to win. And I think Australia will be pretty content with drawing the game as well. Answers, I would have thought AFL would have worked better in Ireland because it's more similar to Gaelic football. It is. For many years, the AFL and the Gaelic Football Association in Ireland, they used to have international rules combining the two sports together, and Australia will play Ireland, either here in Australia or in Ireland. I can't remember when the last game was. It was a few years back. And it was a few years they've done that. So, they are similar. I have played AFL, obviously, growing up. Not at the very high level, obviously, but I only played it in school. I never really played for a club or anything like that. AFL didn't really appeal to me. Cricket obviously did, because I prefer non-contact sports. And AFL wasn't for me. So, they are very similar. You do see a lot of Irish players do play in the AFL, huh? So they do get some, a few Ireland players have played in the AFL and have done pretty well. Yes, I say, Percy Fender, one of those England cricket characters, played at the Oval, and so does Tom Curran. So Nick will surely pay a visit. Yeah, should. I'm not sure what the Oval does in terms of tours, but, if he's going to be in London, you might as well go to the Oval as well as Lord's. See that cricket ground firsthand. Percy Fender, part of that Bodyline series that was on, certainly when Nick reacted to the Bodyline series. And what an interesting period of Ashes cricket history that was. And we are going to be speaking about that. In the lead up to the Ashes, of course, we're going to do that as a historical series episode, talk about Bodyline, because it is the big talking point, especially in the third test match in Adelaide. It was nearly a riot. It didn't equate to anything, but hopefully, they thought at the time, hopefully it wouldn't happen, but it did. They weren't really happy that day, the Adelaide crowd. Certainly when Bill Woodford got hit on the heart and Australian wicketkeeper Bert Oldfield got hit on the head. That's where it really kicked off. So that's where Bodyline really, the tensions were really on edge there in that infamous, I should say, 1932-33 series, which England won 4-1 in the best of 5. And got the Ashes back after they lost them in 1930, when Bradman had a wonderful series. He got 974 runs, and that's where he scored his 334, and he scored 300 of them in a day in Headingley. And that's the end of the over. It's 6 for 564. 6 for 564, and I believe that's going to be drinks in this final session of the day's play. Ashwari, you say, which two teams will be qualifying for WTC finals? Well, you'll probably think Australia and India, but it depends what Sri Lanka do in New Zealand. If they win that series, then it will be Australia and Sri Lanka. But you would think Australia and India are likely to be in the final come June at the Oval, as we've been talking about the Oval a little bit there. John says the SCG also hosted Major League Baseball preseason match in 2014, I think. Yes, they did. I remember that. I remember watching that game. I did play a bit of baseball in school. It's quite interesting. But yes, the SCG did host that match in 2014. And also says, I think Gaelic football is a traditional soccer-sized pitch and not a cricket oval. No, it isn't. It's a sort of a rectangular shape, but very interesting. Interesting game. I have watched a few games of Gaelic football over the years, and quite interesting actually, especially Gaelic football and hurling, which is another game with hockey sticks, sort of like that, in Ireland. Jihan says, India just wait for another third innings collapse in Nagpur or Delhi. There'll be men around the bat, all around the bat, and all chirping away, hoping Australia lose the plot again. It'd be interesting to see what they do I think India will just bat. I think they'll just bat. They don't really need to do anything. Don't really need to force a result in this game. They've already won the series. So I don't think they'll do anything like that. You know, if Australia do bat, they'll probably bat for a limited time, maybe a session. I think India will probably give Australia a session, maybe two and a bit. I'm not sure. It depends what they want to do, but I don't think Australia will have a batting collapse this time around. The pitch is quite flat. You also say it is looking like Archer will be a limited overs player going forward. Yeah, well, it looks like that because he's got so many injuries, obviously, and maybe Test cricket's not quite sort of the thing for his body, obviously. I can understand that, obviously, you know, if he wants to prolong his career. But England will definitely consider him for maybe the Ashes, potentially, maybe. After what happened last time with him and Steve Smith at Lords, be interesting to see if they do consider him. But England's bowling attack at the moment is pretty good. You've got Robinson, you've got Broad and Anderson. You've also got Mark Wood. If he's fit, he's definitely there with that pace. So maybe Archer will not get a go at all, maybe. Probably won't be a part of the squad. But it'll be interesting to see what they do there come the Ashes later on this year. But, yeah, he's had a lot of injuries and he's coming back and he's done okay on comeback. Jofra Archer, he's taken a few wickets. I know in South Africa he did well in that series recently, even though England lost that series, but he did okay there. I think he played a few games in Bangladesh at the moment. So, yeah, I can understand that. I can understand why he thinks that ODIs and T20s are for him. And maybe that is the case. As the Australian bowlers have toiled hard. Nathan Lyon's bowled 63 overs, and Todd Murphy's bowled 44. That's probably the most that Todd Murphy's probably ever bowled in his limited career in international, first-class cricket. And this game's slowly petering out to a draw. It's just a matter of time when both teams will shake hands and say, you know what? We're probably unlikely to get a result here, gentlemen. So we'll probably see that tomorrow. So Nathan Lyon will continue after drinks. Not far away until the end of the day's play. Han says, I like Jardine's imaginary lady in the Bodyline show. I have no idea why they did that. Well, maybe thought the producers or the director of the show probably thought that was probably something that they wanted there. Yeah. But a very controversial situation there with Bodyline in 1932-33. But it was quite interesting seeing Nick react to that teleseries, offering his thoughts. And it's good to see Nick learning about, and Gabe as well, learning about the game's history, which is important, as we mentioned before, to really focus on the game's history and talk about it. And it's always good reading up old games and seeing old scorecards, seeing how players did it back then on different pitches, different surfaces, as Ashwin drives through the covers, and this will be another boundary for India. And it's been that sort of pitch. It's been good for batting. That's the 43rd boundary for India in this innings. Jihan says Australia need to work on knocking over these low-order batsmen. Shardul Thakur, Washington Sundar, Ashwin, Axar Patel, and Jadeja. Maybe more aggression is needed, some chin music. Yeah, they've tried a little bit of that in their settings with the short ball, but it hasn't been that sort of surface. It's been quite slow, and the batters can adjust, really. So they've tried everything, Australia, you know. But certainly in the earlier test matches, they could have done the things a lot better. They could have really been aggressive to the tail, but India's tail-enders. They're not really tail-enders. They're capable batters. And they've got test centuries and half centuries in their careers. Australia's tactics to the tail could have been a lot different in this series, especially in the first 3 test matches. Hans says, if it was up to me, I would give Archer at least 1 full year of white ball to check his fitness before bringing him back to the red ball. Yeah, that's probably what they're probably likely to do, I think. But the medical staff will certainly give their opinions on that and see how he's tracking. But you don't like to see players suffer injuries and stay out of the game for a long time. You don't want to see that. So he's definitely a talent, Jofra Archer. He's definitely can bowl fast, but it's just keeping him on the park that's the thing that England need to worry about. Yes, to say, Han, if it was up to me, it was great how they chose actors who looked nothing like the real life players. Well, that's the thing, obviously. It's very hard to do that, isn't it? To try and get different actors to look like Bradman or Jardine, etc. So I suppose that's the best they could do at the time. That's another 6 by Ashwin. John says, what's the earliest the captains can call it off, or is there no limit? Well, John, once we get to the last hour, so tomorrow, once we get to the last session tomorrow, the last hour, so the last hour will commence. Once that commences, we've got 15 overs to bowl. So in that time, the captains can call it off if they feel like a result's not going to happen. So that's where both teams will consider to shake hands and say, that's it. We're not really going to force a result here. Oh, Ashwin was gone. Sorry, my mistake. I thought he hit that for 6. He hit it straight up in the air, and Kuhnemann took the catch, and Lyons got his 3rd wicket. And that is the end of Ashwin. He's gone. India are 7 for 5, 68. Australia soon to wrap up this innings. Virat Kohli's on 183 not out. And that was the end of the over as well. So to answer your question there, John, once we get to the last hour tomorrow, once you see the umpire do that, tap his wrist, which is the commencement of the last hour, then we'll have 15 overs to bowl. And if both captains agree that a result's not possible, along with the umpires, then the game will be called off. So look out for that tomorrow. I think that would probably happen more earlier than later, I think. Just seeing how the game's going at the moment, it's not like you're going to take clumps of wickets on this surface. It's you either take a wicket or you take a couple. And that's the case throughout this whole test match thus far. So be prepared to see that tomorrow where captains will shake hands and do that. So around about the last hour is where we'll see that happen, John. They can't call it off any earlier than that. You still got to play until that last hour of the match for it to be called off. So we'll definitely see that tomorrow. Good catch from Kuhnemann, and Nathan Lyon got the wicket there. Well done, Nathan Lyon. Handy wicket there. He's bowled well, Nathan Lyon. His figures don't reflect that, but he's had a really good series. And he's bowled a lot of overs in this innings, over 60-odd overs for Australia. And it's going to be Tom Murphy to continue. Curly, can he get to a double century? He's on 183, but India, I think Australia only need to get a couple of more wickets here because Shreyas Iyer is not batting. He's been injured with his back. So Australia may only need to get 9 wickets to wrap up this Indian innings, because if Shreyas Iyer doesn't come out to bat, then Australia just need to pick up 9 wickets instead of 10, which is definitely a possibility given that Iyer hasn't come out to bat as yet. Hans says, wow, England only made 117 in the T20 match. Yeah, they have struggled in that T20 series. I think it's just the pitches over there in Bangladesh, a bit slow. Haven't really been at their best, the world champions, England. But good to see Bangladesh playing well in that series. Game number 2 or 3. Yes, I say Han, if they pick him for the Ashes this year, it will be less than 6 months since he came back. It would be a little bit of a risk if they did do that. But we shall see what the selectors do as Curley works it onto the leg side for a couple of runs. He's gone. He's gone. He's run out. Umesh Yadav has run out. They were coming back for the second run. He was short of his ground at the bowler's end. It was a wonderful throw from the fielder in the outfield. And Umesh Yadav, he got run out in the last, he didn't get run out in the last test match. That was Mohammad Siraj. He got run out in the last test match. But Umesh Yadav, short of his ground. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, way gone. A run out. Australia, all of a sudden, have picked up a couple of wickets in this final session. They've picked up 3 wickets, in fact. That is the end of Umesh Yadav. He's run out without facing a ball. He's gone for a duck. India, 8 down for 569. So Australia just need 1 more wicket, you would think. Shreyas Iyer will probably not bat because of that back injury. So you would probably think that Australia would just need to pick up 1 more wicket. Umesh Yadav gone. Run out without facing a ball. Good fielding from Peter Hanscom. It was a good throw. India, 8 for 569. John says, hard to go with too much chin music when you only pick 1 quick bowler. Yeah, and that's the thing also on these surfaces. You're not going to get the pace as you would in Australia. So Australia's tactics could have been different to the tail, but, that's all a part of the learning process. And what can we do better next time? So Mohammad Shami, I should say, comes in to bat at number 10. Most likely will be the last wicket because Shreyas Iyer has not come out to bat, and he is unlikely, you would think, with that back injury. Look, Jihan says maybe the next tour they'll bring an express bowler purely for short, sharp bursts of short pitch bowling. The Australian fast bowler need to perform to be able to win here. Yes. They haven't taken a lot of wickets in this series as Murphy bowls to Curley, who defends for no run. India lead by 89 runs. It's a handy lead, but this innings has come to an end very quickly. They were looking for 2 there. Curley was committed for the second run. It was Yadav. He was going to the danger end, and he was short of his ground. Curley works it to long on for a single. Shami will be on strike. Hans says, Nick was a huge fan of the actress who played Don Bradman's wife. Was he? Yes, I only saw a bit of the reviews that Nick did. Obviously, I didn't have time to watch all of them. I should really catch up on that. But I only watched a little bit of the reviews that he did. John says, Vera Curley doesn't look impressed. No, he doesn't. He didn't look impressed. Well, there was definitely a second run there. It's just Umesh Yadav was just not quite fast enough. And Peter Hanscom threw the stumps down from the outfield. And it was a pretty good throw. So Australia got a run out, which is good. That always helps the cause, getting a run out. And certainly on this pitch, that hasn't really done much. To get a run out is a good result, I suppose. India lead by 90. This could be the last wicket. India 8 down, potentially. Shreyas Iyer may not come out to bat. So Australia just need to pick up 1 more wicket, you would think. And then we're getting close to stumps. Probably they will have to face a few overs before the end of the day's play. How many overs that will be remains to be seen. How quickly they can pick up the last wicket. So it's going to be Todd Murphy to bowl the last ball of the over. He bowls. This one defended on the front foot from Shami. End of the over, it's 8 for 570. 8 for 570. Wickets are falling left, right, and centre. India lead by 90 runs, 177 overs are done in the book. 90 runs is the lead, so that's a handy lead. But you would think the surface is still good for batting. You would think Australia would knock over those runs, especially with Travis Head once he gets going. You probably think it will be all over in terms of this match equating to a result. John says, geez, that's a long walk up the race. Yeah, it is. I think it's a 90 odd steps, I think it is, John. I think they said on commentary it's 90 odd steps to the dressing room. So it's quite a long walk, especially when you get out. It's quite a big stadium here in Ahmedabad. It holds 100,000 people. And yeah, you don't want to get dismissed early because it's a long walk. And Jihan says, I'll probably do a hamstring walking up those steps. Yes, say Jihan, maybe Khawaja can knock off another 100 tomorrow to cap off his series. He could. Khawaja did leave the field, though. He went for a catch on the boundary rope. I think it was off Patel. It went over the rope for 6. And I think he did hurt his knee a little bit there, Khawaja. It didn't look too bad. He was hobbling a little bit, probably just a bit of jarring. But let's hope Khawaja's okay, because he will have to bat long again tomorrow, if required. Depends when India are going to get bowled out. But he's batted well, Khawaja, in this series. He's been probably the best Australian batter in this series. Probably him, and you probably have to say him and Peter Handscomb, really. Marnus Labuschagne's been disappointing. Smith hasn't been at his best. David Warner was poor. Alex Carey hasn't had a big series with the bat, but he's done well with the gloves. So you'll have to say definitely Khawaja and Handscomb. Definitely the two best batters for Australia in this series. Virat Kohli, can he get to a double century before this 9th wicket falls? Because you would think this would probably be the end of the Indian innings, because Shreyas Iyer will probably not bat. Kohli goes downtown. And Peter Handscomb does the fielding at long on. Didn't quite carry to him, but he does well to cut it off for a potential boundary. They don't run the single. Kohli harbouring the strike, which is the right thing to do in this situation when you're batting with the tail. Yes, to say, Jihan, did Australia lose from this position in Gaul last year? I think yes, we did. Yep, we did. The second test, obviously. The first test, we won by 10 wickets, didn't we? So, yes, we did, Jihan. The second test, Chandamal made 200, and Australia needed to, survive and bat out for a draw, which wasn't going to happen on that surface. And yes, we did lose by an inning. So, yeah, but I don't think that will happen this time around. I think the match is going to be a draw, I think. It's just going that way. It's still a pretty good surface to bat on. The odd ball's done a bit, but it hasn't been that sort of thing, really. On this surface, one ball left of Nathan Lyon's over. Shami will be on strike. Last ball will be over. They ran a single there, Curly. Jihan says, if this match is drawn and Sri Lanka beat New Zealand 2-0, who gets into the final? That's an interesting question. Well, if Sri Lanka do win 2-0 and if India draw this test match, well, I think it will be Sri Lanka that will go through. Depends on points and percentages and that. Be interesting, but you would think Sri Lanka should go through in that situation. Anyway, that's a long time into the future, obviously. That's the end of the over. It's 8 for 571. Yeah, so it would be interesting to see what happens in terms of how Sri Lanka do against New Zealand and what the situation here is in this test match. And now potentially it will end in a potential draw, you would think. But India, will they do enough to go through to the final and play Australia at the Oval? I'm not sure. We'll have to see the calculations and get the calculations out and the abacus and calculating what will happen. But you would think Australia and India would most likely play in the final later on this year. But yeah, we may have to do the calculations. Well, 100 runs in the session for 3 wickets. And Australia, it's been another tough day, but they've really grinded it out. They've really found ways to stick at it and take wickets when needed. But it's been a bit of a grind. And they just need one more wicket, you would think, potentially. As Curley works it onto the leg side, but no run, not taking the single. USSA Jihan, Sri Lanka had a lead of 190 that time. Don't think India will get there. Well, they set New Zealand 280 odd to win. They've already taken a wicket, so they need 9 wickets to get. They can do it, Sri Lanka. They can definitely win that test match. It depends whether or not New Zealand can bat well. They haven't really been batting well, New Zealand. They struggled against England. They struggled against, Sri Lanka as well a bit here. Gone. He is out. Curley is gone. He went for the big shot high in the air onto the leg side. Curley is gone for 186. It's been a superb knock from Virat Kohli. Gone for 186. That is the end of the Indian innings. Shreyas Iyer would not bat. India are all out for 571 with a lead of 91 runs. And Australia will be looking to wipe off that deficit and just look to bat time, really. But for Australia, what can they do? Can they set something up? Can they get, some runs, score quickly? This one was outside off stump. Curley went for the big shot. Went to play the slog sweep, but got a bit of a top edge on that. And a good catch from Marnus Labuschagne in the deep. On the leg side, takes a very comfortable catch. Virat Kohli is gone for 186. India all out in their first innings on day 4, final session. They lead by 91 runs, and Australia will probably need to bat for a few overs to try and get through tonight. Well, there we go. Finally, Australia picked up the 10 wickets. It took a little bit of a grind. Technically 9 wickets. Shreyas Iyer not batting because he's injured. And so it's been a good day for Australia. Grinding away, trying to find a way to try and get through this difficult day with the ball. But India have led, have taken a lead of 91 runs, I should say. So you would think Australia will quickly wipe off that deficit and look to bat time, really. Australia, they can set something up, potentially, but I think we all think that this game is probably going to peter out to a draw. The pitch looks pretty good. Nothing has really done anything. The odd ball's done a bit. It's still pretty comfortable for batting. We even saw that at India's innings today. So it's been quite comfortable. So there we are. India are all out. They lead by 91. Australia will have to bat it for a few overs to get through to stumps on day 4 and potentially set up something on the final day to win this test match. Potentially. Jihan says, just checked it. India can't have Sri Lanka winning 2-0 or they won't get into the final. Sri Lanka winning 1-0 or 1-1 draw will be enough for India to get through. Unless India wins this match, obviously. Yep. So it will depend on how Sri Lanka go in that series, you would think, if they are going to book a place in that WTC final. Well, India are all out for 571. Virat Kohli top scored with 186, and then a superb century from him. A record-breaking drought century for Kohli. Took him 3 years to get this century. He finally ticked it off. Shubman Gill batted well. He made 128. And a good contribution from Axel Patel. He made 79. And Bharat, the wicketkeeper, made 44. And a 42 from Pujara. So good contributions there. And the tail enders towards the end, Ashwin, Umesh Yadav, not really making much of a contribution here. So that is the end of the Indian innings. And probably, I think that is probably the end of the day's play, I think, as well. Because we were close to stumps. So we shall see if it is the end of the day's play. Or we have a few overs left for Australia to negotiate. So Australia will have to bat for a few overs tonight, maybe a handful of overs, not many. So Australia, a few overs to bat today, bat out and try and see what they can do. But they'll be looking to bat for time, Australia, just to take it session by session, really. Australia can't really win the match now. Time is against them. So India's the only side, as John mentions here, that can force a result. But even that's going to be difficult for India as well, to try and take the 10 wickets. As we've seen on this pitch, it's not easy to take wickets in clumps. They often fall in drips and drabs, and that's it. So there we go. All righty then. So Australia will have to bat for a few overs, and that is where we are in the situation of this test match thus far. It's been an interesting last session, you'll have to say. But thanks everyone for joining us for this impromptu live stream. It's been great talking to all of you again. And I just thought, well, come on and talk about the match a little bit, offer my thoughts on the series. And it's been an interesting series. I think, for Australia, a 2-1 result's not a bad result. It's been a difficult tour. A lot of things didn't quite go the way of Australia. They could have done a lot of things differently in hindsight, but oh well, that happens, and that's just the way things went in this series. But difficult tour for Australia. But we are finally coming towards the end of this Border Gavaskar Trophy. This series, we probably think that the game will probably end in a draw tomorrow. Australia probably looking to bat out 3 sessions, not really rush things, really. Just look to play conservatively, and that's understandable given the match situation at this time. So they'll bat out a few overs tonight, and then tomorrow take it session by session, see what happens. But I don't think we're probably most likely not going to get a result in this match. So there we are. So thanks everyone for joining us. It's been great talking to everyone once again. Obviously, I did say before that we weren't going to really live stream all that often on the channel anymore. But I didn't say we're done for good. I just say every now and again is the way that we're looking at it. So, but just thought to come on and speak about the game a little bit. And it's good to be back and good to speak to all of you about this test match. So, thanks everyone for joining us. And Australia will have to bat out a few overs tonight. And as I mentioned, just really play conservatively, look to take it session by session. No need to rush things. They can't really win the game. India and a possible draw is the likely outcome. So that's where we are at the moment. But thanks, everyone, for joining us. Any final thoughts and comments that you may have, we will answer them. And before we sign out, also, if you haven't done so yet, do check out a historical series episode looking back at the history of Lord's Cricket Ground and the MCC when I spoke to Head of Heritage and Collections, Neil Robinson. All those episodes are out now. If you haven't watched them, please check them out. It was great to speak to Neil about the history of Lords and the MCC. We spoke about many topics. We spoke about the origins of Lords, how the ground came about. We spoke about the pavilion. We spoke about the MCC's history as a cricket club. We spoke about the MCC Museum and some of the artifacts in there. And we spoke about the Ashes, of course, because Lords and the Ashes has a big connection. So there we go. Also, we have an upcoming historical series episode as well. I'll be speaking to Andrew Hignell, who is from the Association of Cricket Statisticians and Historians in England. We'll be speaking to him next in the next few days, and that will be going out in the near future. We'll be speaking about the history of the game, all things history of cricket, many of the game's historical aspects and all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. That's coming out in the next few days to a week. So we have exciting episodes coming up on the podcast in terms of the historical side of things of the game for our historical series, which is looking back at the game's history over the years, and quite interesting looking back at the game's history and seeing how the game's changed and evolved over the years. So it's quite interesting chatting to people about that. So those episodes will be coming out in due course. So there we go. That's pretty much it, really. So Australia, just a recap for those who may not know. Australia will have to bat for a little while tonight. Only 91 runs they need to get. That's how many they're behind India at the moment on first innings. And it will be... Alrighty then. Quite an interesting development here. It's going to be Matthew Kuhnemann. He's going to be batting with Travis Head. Usman Khawaja is not out on the field. Now, Usman Khawaja did go off the field with a bit of a knee complaint. So it's understandable that Australia sent out the night watchman and Matt Kuhnemann. Understandable indeed. So Matt Kuhnemann's been sent out as night watchman, and he's opening the batting in Test cricket, which is that's happened a few times in Test cricket where a night watchman's opened the batting. But Usman Khawaja, I believe it does come down to how long Usman Khawaja was off the field. Now, Usman Khawaja's off the field. He jarred his knee. He was taking a catch, and he fell a little bit awkwardly on his knee after trying and catch that ball. It was a ball that was hit by Axel Patel over the rope for 6 in the end. And unfortunately for Khawaja, he landed a little bit awkwardly on that knee. So I think with the amount of time that Khawaja has spent off the field, that's why he's not out here batting at the moment, Khawaja. Or he is still a little bit sore with his knee there. So it will be interesting to see how that pans out, especially for Australia going into tomorrow with their plans in terms of trying to save this test match. We'll cover a couple of overs of the Australian reply. In their second innings, they lead by 91 runs, India. So they'll be looking to try and create something. They've got fielders around the bat. Ashwin in to Kuhnemann, who defends. And that will be his job tonight, Kuhnemann, just to keep Travis Head out of trouble. But obviously with Khawaja, he's off the field. Now, he was off the field for a little while, so he can't bat as yet. So Marnus is the next. Well, he's padded up, Marnus. He's got his pads on, ready to go. So just excuse me, just recapping that Usman Khawaja got a bit of a knee, fell on his knee a little bit on the advertising boards while trying to take a catch. So he's off the ground. So he was off the ground for a while. So Kuhneman defends on the front foot again for no run. That's his job, Kuhneman, as night watchman. So that's why Usman Khawaja is not out there batting at the moment. So maybe still a little bit sore the knee, and probably the time off the field as well. He was off the field for a little while, so you will have to serve some time before he can bat again. Or Australia don't risk it and say, you know what, he batted for a long time in the first innings when he got 180. You know, we can probably save this game, which you would think on this pitch, it's the end of the first over. And it's a maiden. It's none for none. So you'll probably think that Australia will probably most likely try and save this match. John says, big ask after bowling all the overs. Probably worse if they made line do it. Well, yeah, well, Kuhneman didn't really bowl a lot of overs today or in this test match. So, yeah, definitely the one that is taking up the night watchman duties. So it's going to be Jadeja to bowl the second over. And Australia will only have to bat a few overs tonight. Not many. Just get through to the end of the day's play and look to try and bat out for a draw tomorrow. Jadeja into Travis Head, who drives to mid-off for no run. Well, Travis Head's going to be aggressive. He's going to play his shots. The pitch not really offering much for the bowlers. It's still pretty good. Head again. Looking to drive. Doesn't quite time it. Dot ball from Jadeja. I think for Travis Head, it's all about just surviving until tomorrow. Bit of an inside edge onto the pad there. Jadeja in. Travis Head drives again. Back down the ground to mid-off for no run. This one defended from Travis Head onto the leg side for no run. Couple of balls left of the second over. Nathan Lyon. Travis Head, works it away onto the leg side for a single. He's off the mark. And Kuhneman will have one ball to face off Jadeja. Australia trail by 90 runs. Let's hope that knee injury to Usman Khawaja is not as serious. Just a little bit of soreness, and obviously the time off the field, he has to make that up before he can bat. So probably that's the issue here. That's why with Khawaja off the field, as long as he was, that's the issue that it's been in play here. So for Khawaja to bat, he will have to wait for a certain amount of time before he can come back onto the field and bat in this second innings for Australia. So that's why we're seeing Matt Kuhneman as a night watchman opener, batting to try and survive today. Last ball, the second over. Jadeja in. Kuhneman defends on the front foot. It's the end of the over. It's none for one after 2 overs. Australia trail by 90. And 2 overs are done. So India trying everything here. They're sending aggressive fields. They're attacking. They want to take some wickets and put pressure on Australia, but we've seen on this surface, it's still a pretty good surface. So if Matt Kuhnemann can add a very handy first wicket partnership with Travis Head and whittle away at these runs, and if Australia start to get a lead and start to bat time and take time out of this game, it's definitely Australia's goal in this situation for them. As Ashwin bowls, he's into Head, and this one outside off stump. Head drove through the covers for no run. So India have got fielders around the bat. They've got a slip, they've got a gully, and they've got a short leg and a silly point. Ashwin in, Head drives to the fielder at cover for no run. Looking to get bat on ball, Travis Head, and looking to be aggressive here. That's his game plan. Jihan says Kuhnemann to replace Warner in the Ashes. I don't think so, Jihan. The only reason Kuhnemann's batting is because of Khawaja. Another dot ball there. Usman Khawaja was off the field for a while, so in cricket you have to make up penalty time. So he'll have to make up that time, Khawaja, before he can bat. So that's the reason why we're seeing Matt Kuhnemann open the batting with Travis Head. Which is not a bad tactic, actually. You don't see many teams do that. Another dot ball again. Ashwin to Head. Head defends to mid-on for a dot ball. A few overs, maybe one more over after this, maybe another one after that. Depends how long we got to go before the end of the day's play. Another dot ball to finish. It's a maiden over. It's none for one. 3 overs down for Australia. They still trail by 90. Jihan says, wonder if they asked him or he volunteered when they heard Khawaja was sore. Well, they weren't going to ask Nathan Lyon to do it because Nathan Lyon just bowled over 60 overs. Look, I think, they said, Kuhnemann, you're the number 11 anyway. So just come up the order and open. Khawaja's a little bit sore. And, Khawaja batted long periods of time in the first innings, obviously, for his 180. So, not to risk it with Khawaja. Obviously, he's 36 years old. Body takes a lot of time to heal when you're at that age. So, I don't think it's a bad move, actually. Just get your number 11 to open the batting. If you can add a handy partnership with Travis Head, that's good for Australia. And if you can frustrate India, that's even better for Australia's chances of just batting time and just drawing the match. And India will try everything, but this surface is just so flat. Not really doing much. As Jadeja into Kuhnemann. This one into his pads. But it's a dot ball. This one just spinning back. Inside edge from Kuhnemann. But in the end, he's safe. Just hit the back leg. A little bit of turn there for Jadeja. Not much. We've seen that today. Just a little bit of turn on this pitch. Not as much as it was in Indore or Delhi or Nagpur. It's definitely a different surface. India. Fielders around the bat. Jadeja in. Kuhnemann defends with a straight bat. And there's no run. Gian says, do you think Khawaja will get redemption for his 2019 Ashes performance? I think he will. I think he's a different player to what he was back then. He's definitely in good form. There's an appeal for LBW. Jadeja was pointing his finger at the umpire, saying, how's that? Umpire Richard Kettlebreast nodded his head politely and said not out. India think about a review. I'm not sure about it. They've got 3, 2, 1. That's the end of the DRS timer. And let's just have a look at this from Jadeja. Yeah, probably impact outside the line. He got that front pad well outside the line of off stump. Matthew Kuhnemann, and that's the way to go. Get your front pad outside off stump so you're not bringing LBW into play. In the end, good decision by Richard Kettleborough. Jadeja in again. Kuhnemann defends on the front foot, and there's no run. But yeah, it will definitely be a big series for Khawaja. But hopefully he can do well. And he's definitely going to be important for Australia as well. As we saw in the first innings here, you know, he's really improved his game. He's a really good player, and you know, definitely he will think about ticking England off the list and hopefully scoring a century over there if he can. Another dot ball from Kuhnemann doing his job. He's faced 12 balls for no runs. That's his job as the night watchman, to protect Travis Head. Last ball of the over from Jadeja. Kuhnemann defends, and there's no run. It's the end of the over. It's none for one after 4. We may have another over in. Now slowly closing in on stumps. John says, great opportunity for the young man to make a name for himself. Well, I wouldn't have imagined Matt Kuhnemann probably imagining himself opening the batting for Australia. But he's definitely got that opportunity. So, you know, make it count. You know, if you can score a nice contribution here, that'll be pretty good. But the pitch, it has been easy for batting. It hasn't really broken up as much as Ashwin will continue to Travis Head. Head defends to mid-on for no run. Travis Head looking just to get through to the end of play. This could be the last over of the day. Be interesting to see what Australia do in terms of the time-wasting tactics. Look to slow it down, make sure it's the last over of the day, have a bit of discussion. Travis Head and Kuhnemann have a bit of a word in the middle of the pitch just to slow things down, tick the time over. Dot ball again from Ashwin. Ashwin into Head. Head works it onto the leg side through mid-wicket for a single. And Australia pick up their second run. None for 2. They trail by 89. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. So we'll probably get one more over in. It's 3 minutes to go before stumps. Probably get one more over in. This one defended by Kuhnemann for a dot ball. So the plan for Australia tomorrow will be just to bat the day out, you would think, and just see where they are in each session. Kuhnemann defends again. No run. So we may get one more over in after this. That would potentially be the last over of the day. And probably end to proceedings. Ashwin in. Ooh, play and a miss from Kuhnemann, but he survives. It's the end of the over. It's none for 2 after 5. Australia try by 89. 1 for 2 after 5 overs. 1 over left in the day's play. It'll definitely be the last over. Australia will make sure it will be. Jadeja does bowl his overs quickly, so India will be probably searching for one more. Now then, did that get the edge of the bat? I think it did. Bharat couldn't get the glove on it. Hit him on the pad. A chance for India goes begging. Hard to come by on this pitch. So 1 over left. It's going to be Mohammad Shami to bowl the last over. So you would think this will be the last over of the day. Australia just need to survive. And the plan for tomorrow will be just to bat out three sessions, really. This pitch is still good. There's no gremlins in the surface, so you can still bat with ease and not be troubled. As we've seen, a lot of runs have been scored on the surface in 4 days. Mohammad Shami is going to be bowling the last over of the day. It's a head. Head defends on the back foot for no run. Jihan says Australia are 100 to 1 odds to win this match. India 4.5 to 1. Well, India are most likely. They're the likely team to win. Australia can't win, obviously. So their chances have gone. But obviously the draw is the most likely outcome, you would think. I don't see this pitch really breaking up or playing any tricks. It's still pretty good. And it hasn't really deteriorated all that much as Travis Head defends again for no run. John says genuine edge. Yes, it was, but luckily for Kuhnemann, it didn't go to hand. And Bharat couldn't get a glove on that, couldn't catch that ball there. So last over the day, slowly coming towards the end of this test match and this series. We've still got one more day of cricket to go before the end of the series. And it's been quite an interesting finish. To this series. Shami in again. Head works it onto the leg side to square leg for a dot ball. And Travis Head will be looking to just see out these last 3 balls and look to see what he can do tomorrow. But yeah, it's been an interesting test match. It's been a test match that's been a grind. It's been nutritional cricket. Hasn't been easy. Both teams have really been patient and looking just to score their runs patiently. So it hasn't really been much of a grind. Well, it has been a grind, I should say. But both teams have been patient. Shami in onto the pads of Head. He works it around to square leg, deep square leg for a single. He moves on to 3. That's a good place to be at the non-striker's end for Travis Head. Look to be at the non-striker's end and look to see Kuhnemann, the night watchman, do his role, and that's to face these last 2 deliveries. And Australia trail by 88 runs. 2 balls left in the day. Let us know in the chat, what do you think is the likely outcome tomorrow? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow? It should be an interesting day, but I think it's probably going to be much as the same, really, in this test match. It's probably going to be nutritional cricket again. It's going to be a grind. This pitch hasn't really broken up as much. It's still pretty good. Still flat. Not much deterioration. Not much rough. The odd ball's done a bit. It's kept low a little bit. It's spun, but pretty much it's still pretty good for batting. As we approach the end of the day's play. 2 balls left. Shami to the left-hander and Kuhnemann. Ooh, just falling short of short leg. And there is no run. Kuhnemann survives. 1 ball left for him to get through until the end of the day's play. Oh, yes, that came off the face of the bat. Didn't quite defend that well, Kuhnemann. Just got it in front of the short leg fielder, Pujara, who had to dive to his right. He couldn't get that. Couldn't reach it. And the last ball of the day has been defended by Kuhnemann. Australia will finish none for 3 after 6. They trail by 88 runs. And they'll be looking to bat out tomorrow and probably draw this test match, save the game, and finish a 2-1 series result in India, which is not a bad result for Australia, given the difficulties they faced on the tour. There we go. That is the end of the day's play. And Kuhnemann doing his job as night watchman. There we go. End of the day's play. It's been an interesting day's play of cricket. This test match is slowly coming towards an end, and also the series as well. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I hope everyone enjoyed the 2 hours that we've been on, just talking about this test match and talking other things cricket. It's been great as always. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and I hope everyone has a very good evening or a very good morning, wherever you may be around the world, or a very good afternoon. It's been enjoyable once again, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Going to be an interesting day 5 tomorrow, but you should think it should end in a draw. John says, should be a draw, but a lot will depend on how the pull-up fitness-wise. Hopefully we won't get the wobbles. I don't think we will, John. I think, I think it should be a draw. The pitch is still pretty good for batting. Nothing has really deteriorated as much. So I think Australia should be confident knowing that the surface is still playing well. It's just about trying to bat and just be patient. But you should think it should be a draw. It's going to be hard work for India. Try and make anything of this game. But I don't think Australia should have any problems. So it sets up an interesting day 5. But yeah, very interesting test match thus far. But thank you, everyone, for joining us once again. As I said, it's great to chat to everyone, talk about cricket and all things about this test match and the game of cricket as well. It's always enjoyable. Stay tuned, everyone, for our historical series episodes and upcoming episodes on the podcast that we have coming up. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. And make sure you click the bell so you don't miss out on the episodes that we publish of the podcast. So make sure you do all those good things. And thanks, everyone, once again for joining us. It should be an interesting final day of this series and of this test match. You should think it should be a draw, and that should be the conclusion to this test match. And a 2-1 series result should be the likely outcome for this series. But we shall see what happens on day 5 tomorrow of this test match. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. Hope you have a good day. I hope everyone has a good day, and I hope everyone will enjoy the cricket tomorrow on day 5. But once again, everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you have a good day, and until next time, keep safe and bye for now.